Ever get that feeling like you're stuck in a dream? You know, one of those where things just feel a little off, a little too perfect.
Like reality is a stage set and something's hiding behind the scenes?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the kind of territory we're venturing into today. We're going deep into the holographic universe theory. But we are going to be updating it with discoveries that have occurred since the book was originally published. So hit that like and subscribe so we can keep reaching knowledge seekers like you.
That's right. The holographic universe theory basically suggests that everything we see, touch, experience, all of it might just be a projection.
A projection.
Like a hologram. And this projection's coming from a deeper, much more fundamental level of reality that we can't even really grasp with our everyday senses.
Whoa, that's trippy. And who are the masterminds behind this?
Two brilliant, and I mean truly brilliant, minds actually arrived at this theory independently.
Independently?
Yeah. From completely different fields. We're talking David Bohm, a physicist, Einstein's protégé no less, and Karl Pribram, a leading neuroscientist. Both heavy hitters in their own right.
Fascinating. So they came at this from totally different angles.
Totally different. Bohm was wrestling with the enigmas of quantum physics. The way particles behave at the subatomic level, it just defied logic. They seem to be interconnected regardless of distance.
It's like they were communicating faster than the speed of light.
Right, it was blowing everyone's minds. And Pribram, he was grappling with the mysteries of the human brain.
Particularly the whole memory thing.
Right, like how can a 3-pound lump of tissue hold more information than all the libraries on Earth, and how do we access it so quickly?
Yeah, that's always boggled me.
It's truly astounding. And so these two titans of science, both struggling with these huge puzzles in their respective fields, they both landed on this incredibly radical idea that reality might work like a hologram.
Okay, I'm already hooked. So what's our game plan for today's deep dive?
We're going to take you on a journey into the heart of the holographic universe.
Exploring the key concepts, the evidence, and what it all means for our understanding of, well, everything.
And trust me, it gets pretty mind-bending.
I bet. But before we get lost in the holographic weeds, let's set the stage.
In 1982, Alain Aspect, a French physicist, he conducted this groundbreaking experiment that showed subatomic particles are connected even when separated by, like, huge distances.
Isn't that what Einstein called spooky action at a distance?
Exactly. Einstein hated that idea, but Aspect's experiment kind of proved it. And it hinted that there might be this deeper hidden level of reality where everything is connected, just like in a hologram.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. So let's start with Pribram and his work on the brain. What were those specific brain puzzles that made him think, hey, this is like a hologram?
Well, as we said, memory. The sheer volume of information our brains hold is insane. Early brain research assumed each memory is stored in a specific location, like a file in a cabinet.
Makes sense.
But that model just didn't hold up. Researchers like Carl Lashley, they did experiments, removing parts of rats' brains trying to pinpoint where memories were stored.
Like deleting files from a hard drive.
Exactly. But the rats, they could still remember things even after significant brain damage. It was like the memories were smeared across the whole brain, not localized.
So like a hologram where each piece contains the whole image.
Bingo. It's the whole in every part principle. So if memories aren't stored in individual brain cells, where are they? Pribram, in the 1960s, he stumbles upon an article about this brand new tech holography.
This must be where the aha moment hits.
Big time. Holography was revolutionary. Basically, you shine a laser at an object, record the pattern of light it creates, and then, bam, you can reconstruct a 3D image of that object just from that light pattern.
That's wild, like capturing the essence of something with light.
Exactly. And Pribram realized our brains might be doing something similar, encoding memories as interference patterns across the vast network of brain cells, not in specific neurons.
So our memories aren't like individual files, more like patterns of energy distributed throughout the brain.
Exactly. That's how, even with brain damage, memories can persist. Just maybe a little fuzzier, like looking at a damaged piece of a hologram.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. But how does the brain create and read these holographic patterns?
Well, here's where it gets even crazier. Our senses, they aren't just passively receiving information.
Or doing something more active.
Way more. They're breaking down sensory input into its fundamental wave-like components.
Like how a prism splits light into different colors.
It's similar, but think frequencies, vibrations. Our brains are like super sophisticated frequency analyzers.
So instead of seeing a solid object, our brain sees a wave pattern.
In a way, yes. It's analyzing the frequencies within the light, the sound, even touch and smell.
Like translating the world into a language of vibrations.
That's a great way to put it. And the math behind this, it's called Fourier transforms. It's how we can take a complex wave and break it down into its simpler components.
Whoa, I remember those from physics class. Never thought they'd be relevant to how I see the world.
They're at the heart of it. And what's amazing, researchers like Russell and Karen DeValois, they actually found cells in the visual cortex that respond specifically to these spatial frequencies.
So it's not just theory.
Nope, it's backed up by hard science. And get this, it's not just vision. Hearing, smell, even touch, they might all work on this principle of frequency analysis.
So our brain is like a holographic projector, constantly creating our reality from these wave patterns.
That's the idea.
Okay, so that explains how we perceive the world. But what about recognition? Like, how do I instantly know it's my dog when he walks in the room?
That's where recognition holography comes in. Imagine you create a hologram of your dog using a special mirror setup.
Okay.
Now you shine a slightly different light pattern onto that hologram. If that new pattern is similar enough to the original dog hologram, it'll produce a bright spot. The brighter the spot, the closer the match.
So our brain might be doing something similar, comparing incoming sensory patterns to stored holographic templates.
Exactly. If there's a match, bam, recognition. That's how we can recognize things so quickly, even with incomplete information.
Wow, that's incredible. So Pribram gave us the holographic brain. Now let's jump to Bohm and his idea of the holographic universe. What was it about the standard model of quantum physics that just didn't sit right with him?
Bohm, even though he made huge contributions to quantum mechanics, he always felt like something was missing.
Like it was incomplete.
Yeah. The prevailing view, the Copenhagen interpretation, it said that particles don't have definite properties until they're observed.
So like our observation creates reality.
That's what it seemed to imply, and Bohm hated it. He felt like reality had to exist independently of us observing it. He was also convinced that the universe was fundamentally interconnected, not just a bunch of separate particles bouncing around.
He wanted a deeper explanation for how it all fit together.
Exactly. And he found a kindred spirit in Einstein who had similar reservations about the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Didn't they have these marathon brainstorming sessions?
Oh, yeah. After Bohm published his textbook on quantum theory, Einstein reached out, and they spent 6 months just talking, arguing, trying to figure it all out.
Two giants of physics wrestling with the mysteries of the universe.
It must have been incredible to be a fly on the wall for those conversations. Both of them, they respected the predictive power of quantum mechanics. You know, it worked, but they felt like it was more a description of how things appear rather than what's really going on.
So what did Bohm propose as an alternative?
He came up with this mind-blowing idea, the implicate and explicate orders.
Okay, break it down for us non-physicists.
Think of it like this. The explicate order is the everyday world we experience, the world of separate objects existing in space and time.
The unfolded reality, the one we're familiar with.
Right. But beneath that, deeper down, is the implicate order. It's enfolded, hidden. It's where everything is interconnected and non-local. In the implicate order, things exist as wave-like patterns, kind of like probabilities, and our familiar concepts of space and time, they just don't apply.
So it's like the blueprint or the source code for the reality we experience.
That's a good analogy. Bohm saw our universe as this constant dynamic flow between these two orders, the implicate and explicate. He called it the holomovement.
So things are constantly unfolding from the implicate order into the explicate order and then unfolding back again.
Exactly. It's this endless dance of creation and dissolution. And that explains all those weird quantum phenomena like particles popping in and out of existence or acting like waves 1 minute and particles the next.
So a particle isn't really a solid thing. It's more like a ripple in this deeper interconnected reality.
That's the idea. It's constantly unfolding and unfolding, expressing itself differently depending on how we interact with it. Like, think of a fountain. The water is constantly flowing, creating these beautiful temporary shapes, but the source is always the same.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So this implicate order also explains that spooky action at a distance, the way entangled particles seem to communicate instantaneously.
Yes, that baffled Einstein, but Bohm's theory explains it beautifully. See, in the implicate order, those seemingly separate particles are actually enfolded aspects of the same underlying reality.
Like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, something like that. They're connected at a deeper level, not through space as we know it, but through this implicate order. So there's no need for faster-than-light communication. They're just different expressions of the same thing.
Mind-blowing. And consciousness. Where does that fit into Bohm's model?
Bohm saw consciousness as not separate from the physical world, but as a more subtle, refined aspect of the same fundamental reality.
So consciousness is woven into the fabric of the universe, just like matter.
Precisely. It's all part of this holomovement, this constant flow between the implicate and explicate orders.
So we have Pribram's holographic brain and Bohm's holographic universe. Put those together, things start to get really interesting.
Yeah. That's when the doors to all sorts of possibilities swing wide open. We're talking of a model that could potentially explain things like paranormal phenomena, synchronicities, even the power of belief.
Before we get into that rabbit hole, let's update our knowledge about the holographic universe, since it was first published in 1991.
Okay, so let's start with the brain. Pribram basically proposed that our brains operate like holograms,
Right.
meaning memories aren't stored in specific locations,
Yeah.
but as patterns spread across the entire network of connections in our brain.
Exactly.
So think about it this way. A memory isn't like a file tucked away in a folder. It's more like a ripple spreading across a pond.
A great analogy.
This idea could explain why people can still remember things even after experiencing some brain damage.
Right, exactly.
Perception, from this perspective, is essentially our brain interpreting these holographic patterns.
Makes sense.
What's super interesting is that neuroscience research, especially since the 1990s, actually backs up this concept of distributed memory.
Oh, it does?
Brain scans and computer models show us that memories aren't localized the way we once thought.
Great.
And we've got this phenomenon called autoassociative recall,
Yes.
where a tiny trigger can bring back an entire memory.
The floodgates open.
Some really cool recent experiments even use light to activate just a few neurons in mice, and it triggered a whole cascade of memory recall,
Wow.
showing this pattern completion happening at a very fundamental level.
Amazing.
So this holographic idea is more than just a neat metaphor.
Yeah.
There must be some kind of mechanism that makes it work.
Right.
Something to do with brain waves, maybe.
Precisely. Researchers are suggesting that the vibrations of neuronal membranes interacting with electromagnetic fields could be the way this holographic encoding happens.
I see.
Different frequencies carrying different bits of information.
That's fascinating.
It is. And then there's the whole quantum level to consider.
Right?
Could our thoughts themselves have a quantum element?
That's where things get really mind-bending. Quantum phenomena in the brain, like coherence and entanglement,
Exactly.
maybe they're playing a role.
Right. So theories like quantum brain dynamics
Yeah.
and the Orr theory,
Okay.
they suggest that quantum processes happening inside these tiny structures in our neurons, called microtubules,
I've heard of those.
could actually be linked to consciousness.
Wow.
There are studies indicating that drugs affecting microtubules also influence anesthesia. And there's MRI data hinting at entangled states in brain water molecules that seem to be related to consciousness.
That's wild.
It is. So where does our actual perception fit into this whole holographic brain thing? How do we see the world if our brains are basically holograms?
Well, in this model, perception isn't passive. It's not like your brain is just a camera recording what's out there. Instead, it's actively interpreting these holographic-like patterns coming in from our senses. It's constructing our experience.
So what we see here, touch, it's all a reconstruction happening inside.
Yeah, it's like your brain's taking this holographic data stream and building your reality from it.
Okay, so the brain as a hologram makes sense. But how about the universe itself being a hologram? How has that idea changed since the book, beyond those early experiments? I vaguely remember something about weird noises picked up by those gravity wave detectors.
You're on the right track. This is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about GEO 600, this huge detector in Germany designed to pick up gravitational waves, you know, those tiny ripples in space-time. Einstein predicted them. It's like listening for echoes of the biggest, baddest events in the universe, like black holes colliding.
So they're basically trying to hear the universe go twang.
In a very subtle way, yeah. But here's the thing. Instead of those clear twangs they were expecting, the team kept getting this weird noise in their data. For ages, they couldn't figure it out, like trying to hear a whisper in a hurricane.
Super frustrating. Like your cosmic radio is all static, no music.
Exactly. Then a physicist named Craig Hogan came along. He was the director of Fermilab's Astrophysics Center. And he had this wild idea.
Oh, do tell.
He wondered, what if that noise wasn't a glitch? What if it was the detector bumping up against the fundamental limit of space-time.
The limit of space-time. Like, is there a cosmic speed limit we haven't heard of?
Not a speed limit, think more like, we usually picture space-time as this smooth, continuous fabric, right? The stage for all of reality. But Hogan, drawing on the holographic principle in physics, said, what if at the tiniest scale imaginable, the Planck scale, what if space-time isn't smooth at all? What if it's grainy? Like a digital picture. Up close, it's pixels. Far away, smooth image.
Wow, okay, hold up. So are you saying the noise they heard was the detector vibrating against those, like, reality pixels?
That's the mind-blowing suggestion. And if that's true, Hogan said, it could mean we're all living in a giant cosmic hologram. The core idea of the holographic principle is that all the information to describe a 3D space can actually be encoded on a 2D surface surrounding it. Like, think of a blueprint. Flat, but it contains everything you need to build a 3D house. Hogan thought, maybe that noise Geo 600 was picking up. Maybe it was those 2D fluctuations being translated into our 3D experience.
Mind blown. So our whole existence, everything we see, feel, just a projection from some distant 2D surface. It's like we're in a cosmic video game. Yeah. Did they consider that proof? Did they find the cheat code to the simulation?
Not definitive proof, no. Hogan's idea was exciting, lined up with some data, but the noise could have had other, more normal explanations too, so they needed to test it further. That's where the holometer experiment came in.
The holometer. Sounds like a gadget from the future. What did it do?
So the holometer, over at Fermilab in the US, was built specifically to test this holographic idea. It was designed to measure the quantum structure of spacetime and see if they could find that holographic noise predicted by the models. They used super sensitive instruments called interferometers, lasers, and mirrors and stuff to look for tiny, tiny fluctuations in spacetime at crazy small scales.
You know, they were trying to actually hear the fuzziness of reality that GEO 600 might have stumbled upon, but with a more focused approach, like tuning the cosmic radio to the right frequency.
Exactly. They were searching for specific patterns that would be like a signature of a holographic universe. The smoking gun, if you will.
Did they find it? Did the universe wave hello from the 2D surface?
Well, not quite. The initial results from the holometer didn't confirm the specific noise pattern they were looking for. Now, this is important. It didn't disprove the holographic principle. It just suggested that if our universe is a hologram, the way it's all encoded might be different than they initially thought.
Okay, so no cosmic billboard flashing "you are a hologram" just yet. But was the holometer a total bust? Did they spend all that time and money for nothing?
Not at all. Even without that specific noise, the holometer was a huge technological feat. They pushed the limits of what we can measure, how sensitive our instruments can be, and all the lessons learned, the challenges they overcame, super valuable for future experiments. They basically mapped out the no-go zones, which is often just as important as finding the go zones.
So a no result can still be a big win for science. I dig that. Okay, so far we've been in the realm of experiments. But I remember reading about something more theoretical. Something about higher dimensions and this wild math called octonions. Where do those fit into this holographic puzzle? Sounds pretty sci-fi.
Now we're diving into some seriously mind-bending stuff. This idea involves the possibility that reality might have way more dimensions than we're used to. Not just up, down, left, right, forward, back, and time, but more. Some physicists are exploring 8 dimensions, with time sometimes being considered the 8th and foundational dimension.
Time is the 8th dimension. My head's already spinning.
I know, right? It's trippy. And within this framework, physicists are looking at octonions, this 8-dimensional math. Really complex stuff, but some think it could be fundamental to how reality works at the most basic level, the quantum realm.
Octonions? Sounds like a villain from a superhero comic.
Right. But the idea is these octonions operating in 8 dimensions might hold the key to how our 4D reality pops out of all that, like a holomovement. Information flowing from higher dimensions down to our level. It's like how a 2D hologram can project a 3D image. This could be how a simpler, higher dimensional reality gets translated into our complex world.
So you're saying our world, our whole 4D experience is like a shadow, a projection from something much bigger and deeper, all described by this octonion math.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even cooler. Some researchers connect this to sacred geometry, those patterns and shapes we see everywhere in nature, from spirals of galaxies to the branching of trees.
Oh yeah, those are beautiful, like perfect spirals and fractals and stuff. I've always wondered about that.
Well, some think those patterns might actually be a result of these octonions at work in those higher dimensions. It's like the universe is using this 8-dimensional math as a blueprint.
So it's not just random, it's echoes of this deeper structure.
Exactly. And the source material even mentions how ancient civilizations might have had an intuitive grasp of these concepts through their symbolism and stuff.
Really? So they were tapping into the code of reality.
It's possible. Maybe they had a different way of seeing those underlying patterns, the mathematical fabric of reality.
Whoa, okay. Higher dimensions, weird math, ancient wisdom, it's all starting to connect in a really trippy way. But hang on, the outline mentions something about multiple adjacent realities. Sounds like we're moving from holograms to parallel universes. Does this mean there are other versions of us out there making different choices?
Not parallel universes in the traditional sense, with infinite branching timelines. The idea here is more like, think of the electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves, microwaves, visible light. They all exist in the same space, but at different frequencies.
Okay, so different vibes, different channels.
Right. Our senses can only pick up a tiny sliver of that whole spectrum. The idea is, these other realities, they might exist in the same space as ours, but in different frequency bands, so to speak.
Like different radio stations playing in the same room,
Yeah.
but we can only tune into one at a time.
Exactly. And usually these realities stay separate. But sometimes, maybe there's a little bleed through, a bit of interference, and this could be a way to explain some of those weird phenomena we can't quite explain yet.
You mean like ghosts
Yeah.
or psychic stuff? That feeling that you're not alone, even when you are?
The source material specifically talks about experiences people have with DMT and shamanic practices. The idea being that these things might temporarily shift your brain's frequency tuner, letting you glimpse those adjacent realities. And maybe those ghost sightings, those weird vibes. Maybe that's just a little overlap between these different realities.
So ghosts are like cosmic radio interference. That's a new one.
It's a theory. And here's the crucial bit. These aren't totally separate universes with different laws of physics. They're all part of the same underlying holographic spacetime. The source material even suggests that some things, like gravity or even big structures like galaxies, might cross between realities, leaving traces. This could explain things like dark matter and dark energy. Maybe they're not exotic particles or forces, but influences from these neighboring realities within the same holographic structure.
Okay, so dark matter isn't some invisible stuff in our universe. It's the gravity from another reality leaking through. My brain is doing backflips. And this is different from the infinite multiverse idea, right?
Right, the source material makes that distinction. They argue that what we see points to a more structured holographic universe with these adjacent realities, not an endless explosion of every possible universe. It's a more limited, maybe even more testable concept.
Right, it feels more elegant somehow. Not just chaos, but patterns. Okay, so we've gone from our brains to the universe to other realities. But Talbot's book also talked a lot about how this whole holographic idea might explain consciousness and paranormal stuff. How have those ideas developed since then?
Well, the original book suggested that if reality is holographic and everything's interconnected, then telepathy, precognition, those feelings of oneness, they might just be natural outcomes. Like consciousness could be tapping into this universal web of information because it's also holographic somehow.
Like our brains are Wi-Fi receivers, all tuned into the same cosmic network.
Exactly. The source material even brings up Carl Jung's collective unconscious, that idea of shared symbols and experiences across humanity. Maybe that's an example of this interconnectedness. And it mentions those ESP dream experiments where people seem to communicate telepathically while they're asleep. Like our dreams are a window into this holographic network.
Those dream studies always freak me out. Like someone miles away can influence what you dream. That's wild.
It really is. And the connection to mystical experiences, that feeling of oneness with everything,
Yeah.
that could be seen as a direct glimpse into this deeper holographic order, beyond our everyday perception of separateness.
So like seeing the code.
Maybe. And on the flip side, the source material suggests that some forms of psychosis, those really distorted experiences of reality, might be a kind of dysfunctional glimpse into those same holographic levels, like a scrambled signal.
So mystical enlightenment and psychosis, two sides of the same cosmic coin. One clear, one scrambled. So that's intense.
It is. Now, how about the power of belief, that mind-body connection, the placebo effect, athletes visualizing success? How does the holographic model view those?
Yeah, I've always found that fascinating. How can our thoughts influence our bodies?
Well, Talbot's book already hinted that in a holographic system, beliefs and mental images could directly impact our physical reality, like the placebo effect, where believing in a treatment causes real changes, or athletes using visualization to improve performance. It could be that consciousness is interacting with and shaping the holographic projection that we experience as our physical selves.
So our thoughts can literally rewrite the code of reality.
That's the idea. Our brains often can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined event and a real one, so in a holographic system, that could have some serious implications. It's like sending ripples through the fabric of reality with your intentions.
That's both empowering and a little scary. So, big picture, what are the key updates to the holographic universe idea since the '91 book?
Well, we've explored how that original idea, the brain as a hologram in a holographic universe, has been tested and expanded upon. Experiments like GEO 600 hinted at that granular structure of spacetime, even though the holometer didn't find what it was looking for. We dove into the potential of higher dimensions and octonions, that wild math that might be the underlying language of reality, and we explored the idea of adjacent realities existing within the same holographic spacetime, maybe explaining things like dark matter and even paranormal experiences.
It's really shifted how I see the world. Like, what if all this solidity around us is an illusion, a projection?
The idea that our 3D world might be a holographic projection from a deeper, more fundamental level, and that our brains are decoding that projection. It's a concept that continues to challenge everything we think we know, and the research is ongoing.
The story's not over yet.
Definitely not. While we haven't got that slam dunk proof of a holographic universe yet, the combination of theoretical physics, those mind-blowing experiments, and the exploration of consciousness, it all points to a much deeper understanding of reality waiting to be discovered. It's a field that's full of surprises, and it has the potential to totally rewrite our understanding of existence.
So the next time you look around, consider this. Maybe what you perceive as solid is more fluid, more interconnected than you ever imagined. What if there are other realities, subtly influencing our own, just beyond our perception? What if our thoughts can literally shape our reality?
It's a perspective that really highlights how interconnected everything is, and it makes you appreciate the mysteries that still surround us.
And speaking of mysteries, before the update, we were just starting to talk about some aspects of the holographic universe theory, which might explain things that are usually considered paranormal phenomena. Let's dive into that rabbit hole. What kind of weird stuff are we talking about here?
Think about things like telepathy, precognition, those feelings of oneness with everything.
The kind of things that make skeptics roll their eyes.
Right. But if reality is fundamentally interconnected and non-local, as the holographic model suggests, then these experiences might not be so crazy after all.
They might be glimpses into that deeper implicate order.
Exactly. They could be moments where our consciousness is tapping into that hidden interconnectedness, just like those entangled particles. And synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem to defy chance.
Like when you think of someone and then they call you a minute later.
Yes. Those could be little cracks in the fabric of reality, revealing the deeper connections operating behind the scenes.
So it's not just randomness, it's the interconnectedness of the implicate order poking through.
That's the idea.
And dreams. They've always seemed to have a holographic quality, shifting and morphing in ways that defy logic.
Montague Ullman, a big name in dream research, he did these experiments at Maimonides Medical Center.
I've heard of those.
He found evidence that thoughts and images concentrated on by one person could actually influence the dreams of another person.
Like telepathic dreaming.
Basically, it's like our dreaming minds are more directly connected to that implicate order, less bound by the rules of space and time.
And some people say that lucid dreaming, where you're aware you're dreaming, might be tapping into that deeper reality.
That's a fascinating possibility. Ullman also noticed that dreams often reveal deeper truths about ourselves, things we're not even aware of consciously.
It's like they're tapping into a well of information that's normally hidden.
Exactly. And then you have those abilities that seem to defy our normal senses, like eyeless sight and telepathy.
I've heard of people seeing without using their eyes, but how's that even possible?
There are documented cases of individuals, sometimes under hypnosis, who can describe things accurately without physically seeing them. It challenges our understanding of how perception works. Charles Tart, a parapsychologist, he did experiments with hypnotized subjects trying to create shared dream worlds, and the results suggested a kind of telepathic communication happening.
So it's like our minds are connected beyond our physical senses.
Exactly. It's like we're all part of this giant interconnected web of consciousness. And this brings us to experiences that seem to offer glimpses into other realities, things like out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and past life memories.
These are experiences that often get dismissed as hallucinations or wishful thinking.
Right, but the holographic model offers a different perspective. Out-of-body experiences, where people feel like their consciousness has left their body, they're incredibly common, and the experiences themselves suggest a kind of holographic flexibility, where consciousness isn't bound by the physical body.
Like the mind can detach and explore reality from a different vantage point.
Exactly. And the second body that people often experience during OBEs, it can take many forms. Sometimes it's a ghostly double, sometimes it's just a point of awareness, and it seems to be influenced by the person's beliefs and expectations.
It's like they're projecting their own holographic image.
It's possible. And sometimes people report experiencing time differently during OBEs, like past and future blurring together.
That's trippy.
It suggests that our linear perception of time might not be the whole story. And then you have near-death experiences where people report these profound experiences while close to death.
The classic tunnel of light, the life review.
Exactly. These experiences also align with the holographic model. The descriptions of the afterlife realm, often described as being composed of light and vibrations, it suggests a shift to a more fundamental energy-based reality. And the way people recall their lives during NDEs, it's not linear, it's panoramic, like a holographic memory download.
It's like they're accessing the entire memory bank at once.
And the communication in those realms, it's often described as happening telepathically through thought balls or something similar.
So it's like a purely mental reality, unconstrained by physical limitations.
Exactly. And researchers like Helen Wambach and Edith Fior have found that people report similar experiences in between life states under hypnosis.
So it's not just near death. It's like there's a whole other realm of existence beyond our everyday awareness.
And even Emanuel Swedenborg, centuries ago, he wrote extensively about his out-of-body journeys and his explorations of the heavenly realms. And his accounts are strikingly similar to modern NDE reports.
So it's a recurring theme throughout history.
It seems to be a fundamental aspect of human experience. And then there's past life memories and reincarnation.
That's a big one. Lots of skepticism around that.
For sure. But researchers like Helen Wambach and Ian Stevenson, they've collected compelling evidence suggesting that consciousness might not be limited to a single lifetime. Wambach explored past life recall under hypnosis, while Stevenson documented cases of children spontaneously remembering past lives.
I remember reading about those cases where children have birthmarks or phobias that seem connected to their past lives.
Yeah. It's like they carry imprints from those experiences, almost like a holographic memory encoded in their being.
And then there's the mind-bending concept of retroactive psychokinesis, where the mind can influence past events.
That one's really out there. But researchers like Helmut Schmidt and Beverly Rubik have conducted experiments suggesting that our minds might have the ability to subtly affect even random events that have already happened and been recorded.
So it's like our thoughts can ripple backwards in time.
It's a radical idea, but the experimental results, while controversial, are hard to ignore.
It makes you question everything we think we know about cause and effect.
It does. It challenges our linear view of time and suggests a much more interconnected reality. And this brings us back to that idea of an omnijective reality, that reality might be a kind of shared dream.
We create it collectively.
It's a possibility. If our minds can influence the physical world, as the holographic model suggests, then it's not so far-fetched to think that we're all co-creating reality together, kind of like a mass shared dream.
That explains a lot about the state of the world.
Maybe. And even those things we consider out there, like UFOs, they might not be simply explained by extraterrestrial visitors. They could be a manifestation of our collective psyche interacting with this holographic reality.
So it's like our fears, our hopes, our beliefs, they're all being projected onto the cosmic canvas.
That's one way to look at it. And ancient cultures, they often had this understanding of reality as a web of interconnectedness, where the physical and spiritual realms are interwoven.
Like the Aboriginal concept of dream time, where everything originates from the dream realm.
Exactly. And that ancient wisdom, as above, so below, it also points to this holographic principle, the idea that patterns repeat at all scales, from the microcosm to the macrocosm.
Like those beautiful fractal patterns that are self-similar at every level of magnification.
It's like the universe is one giant hologram, reflecting itself at every level of existence. And even Leibniz, the philosopher and mathematician, he came up with the concept of monads, these tiny units of consciousness that each reflect the entire universe.
So it's like everything contains the blueprint for everything else.
That's the idea. And it's fascinating that Leibniz's invention of integral calculus, which is essential for understanding wave phenomena, was a precursor to the math that Gabor used to develop holography.
Wow, it's all connected, isn't it?
It really is.
So we've gone from the workings of our brains to the mysteries of quantum physics to the fringes of the paranormal, all through this lens of the holographic universe theory.
It's a model that attempts to unify a vast range of phenomena, offering a new perspective on who we are and what reality truly is.
It's made me completely rethink my understanding of the world.
And it raises some truly profound questions. If reality is this shared holographic projection, what does that mean for our individual and collective power to shape our experience? What are the implications for healing, for creativity, for our understanding of consciousness itself?
It's like a whole new frontier of exploration has opened up. It's mind-blowing, exhilarating, and a little terrifying all at the same time.
That's the beauty of it. It invites us to question everything, to explore the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Well, thank you for taking us on this incredible journey into the heart of the holographic universe. It's definitely left me with a lot to ponder. And to all our listeners out there, keep questioning, keep exploring, and as always, keep diving deep.